uh, during this dissertation proposal, and it is titled, "This is My Body, the Experiences of Black Women Who Gave Birth During the COVID-19 Pandemic." The introduction. So the United States has a cruel history with the healthcare of Black people, and especially with Black women. The cesarean section, the overotomy, and the repair of obstetrical fistulas were practiced and perfected on the bodies of enslaved Black women until they were either healed or dead. The medical exploitation of slavery impacted obstetric racism, which runs rampant in modern healthcare. This is the depiction of a Black fetus in a Black womb. In 2021, this drawing by Chideribi Ibi, a Nigerian medical student, went viral. It was the first time that hundreds of thousands of people saw a medical depiction of Black anatomy. And it was also the first time that many in Black communities realized how widely their bodies are left outside of the medical context. The systemic racism that permits only 4.5% of general medicine textbooks to depict images showing dark skin is the same racism that often dismisses Black women's self-reported pain and perpetuates the deaths of childbearing Black women at almost quadruple the rate of their white counterparts. In the United States, pregnant Black women are 5 times more likely to die from cardiomyopathy, preeclampsia, and eclampsia, 2.6 times more likely to die from obstetric embolism, and 2.3 times more likely to die from obstetric hemorrhaging. And this is this many times much more than white women. Many of the deaths of pregnant Black women are preventable. Though the experiences of pregnant Black women are typically impacted by medical racism, by Black maternal mortality, by familial support during pregnancy, and during the transition to parenthood, far less is known about how these processes were affected by the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which was an unprecedented time in world history. The purpose of this study is to add to the literature on Black maternal health, to further the understanding of the effects of the pandemic on Black women who are pregnant, and to learn about how birthing an infant during the pandemic changed Black family structure. My research questions are as follows. How did the participants' intersectional identities as Black women impact their experience of the pandemic? How did the pandemic impact the participants' birth and pregnancy experiences? How did the participants' family systems change after giving birth? And what are the participants' most significant points of resilience? Before moving forward, I want to define some terms that I will be using in the rest of my presentation. The first is race, which is a socially constructed group based on individual physical characteristics. For example, Black, white, or Asian. Racism is the oppression that forms impassable symbolic barriers between racial groups. For example, housing discrimination, inequitable social determinants of health, and legal and illegal segregation. Ethnicity is the specific location, experience, history, and culture of an individual. For example, African American, Afro-Caribbean, or Afro-Latina. And Black maternal health is the full spectrum of reproductive health experiences that includes the perinatal period of pregnancy, labor, birth, and postpartum. The literature review. Theoretical frameworks are used to outline a study's assumptions, pinpoint which questions to ask, and show how to interpret a study's findings. This study calls for the use of several different theories from various academic disciplines in order to account for the complexity of an individual's life. Ecological systems theory is a model that describes how an individual interacts with their immediate and distant surroundings and broader societal context in which they are embedded. It examines the outside world's impact on both an individual and their family. Family systems theory sees each family member as interconnected and describes the emotional function of families through concepts like self-differentiation and fusion. And it depicts a family structure and processes through tenets like relationship triangles and emotional cutoff. Intersectionality is a theory formally extended and developed by Kimberly Crenshaw that states that people oppressed in multiple ways must choose between the risk of participating in dominant discourse and the dangers of not doing so. For example, Black women choosing between participating in anti-racist and feminist movements, which often have conflicting agendas. For this reason, multi-subordinated people need to be understood using a unique analytical process. I will also be using Black feminist thought developed by Patricia Hill Collins, which focuses on the experiences of Black women as studied by Black women. It necessitates that Black women use their concrete daily experiences to access more abstract knowledge and honors Black women's rich tradition of sisterhood and dialogue by valuing connectedness as a primary way of knowing. The history of Black maternal health in the United States. The 1808 ban on the importation of Black people centered Black women because reproducing Black women became the sole replenishers of future slave labor. For this reason, they became integral to both white individual slave owners and the entire global industry of slavery. The following quote was taken from a white slave owner and published in 1859 in a periodical titled Profits of Farming, Facts and Figures. I own a woman who cost me $400 when a girl in 1827. Admit she made me nothing, only worth her victuals and clothing. She now has 3 children worth over $3,000. I would not this night touch $750 for her. Her oldest boy is worth $1,250 cash, and I can get it. Jim Crow was a system developed to replace slavery and deny free slaves the rights guaranteed to white people during an era of legal racial segregation when African Americans had limited access to health resources. This also made them more likely to die from illnesses like tuberculosis and heart disease. However, many white Americans felt threatened by the expanding Black populace and looked to eugenics as a solution. In 1964, after Nile Ruth Cox gave birth at age 17, she and her mother were coerced by their social worker to have Nile undergo an irreversible sterilization surgery. It's either sign the paper or mama's checks get cut off. During the civil rights movement, white supremacy organized into a more formal political system. In response to equal rights initiatives, groups of white citizens and law enforcement used violence, sexual violence, and humiliation to maintain their version of law and order. Unfortunately, Black women were the meeting place of race and gender and often became a battleground for deeply political issues. In 1965, Henrietta Wright drove to Winona, Mississippi to register to vote. A few hours later, she was harassed, handcuffed, beaten, sexually assaulted, and jailed by a sheriff and 2 deputies. The beating knocked out 2 of her front teeth and left her gums permanently bruised. Her hands ended up so damaged that most days her husband would have to tie her shoes for her. Blood clots, she explained, along with the bumps and knots that had sprung up in the places where Wages and his men ripped the skin from her wrists. Post-civil rights, women's access to contraception, abortion, and higher education increased, and formerly excluded racialized groups were now eligible for welfare. Additionally, new forms of technology began intersecting with the ongoing advocacy work of Black women. Even so, On October 22nd, 2020, Dr. Shanice Wallace, a pediatrician, passed away from postpartum complications 2 days after giving birth to her daughter. She had symptoms of preeclampsia, so the doctors performed a C-section to deliver the baby 4 weeks early. Her husband, Anthony Wallace Jr., wrote on his GoFundMe page, 3 of the main challenges we encountered were a ruptured liver, high blood pressure, and kidneys that were not fully functioning. Shanice fought with every bit of strength, courage, and faith she had available. We now live in the era of the new Jane Crow. The overturning of Roe versus Wade was rooted in structural racism and white supremacy, specifically because Black women are the most likely demographic to access abortion services in the United States, receiving abortions 3.6 times more than white women. These new restrictions mostly affect people able to become pregnant, especially if they have a disability, are in a low socioeconomic class, or belong to a racial or ethnic minority. Structural racism impacts reproductive life even before an abortion can take place, through, for example, healthcare access, health education, and urban planning. Racialized people who are denied abortion access are disproportionately harmed because they are more likely to experience dangerous pregnancy outcomes and undergo financial hardship. And racialized pregnant people have more severe social repercussions because they have higher chances of being criminalized and stigmatized as young, poor, single mothers. The transition to parenthood. The transition to parenthood describes the changes in an individual's and family's life between mid-pregnancy and the second year after a baby is born. This can include urgent childcare duties, sleep deprivation, decreases in leisure and alone time, modifications in work schedules, changes in moods and desired intimacy, financial concerns, and redefined relationships with friends and family. Successfully adapting to the typical stressors of parenthood is crucial for new parents to be responsive caregivers to their infants and requires considerable psychological energy. How parents react to the transition to parenthood individually and as a couple indicates their effectiveness in the parenting role and predicts their child's healthy and typical development. COVID-19 and pregnant Black women. During the pandemic, pregnant Black women were likely to report postpartum anxiety, moderate stress, depression, and PTSD after giving birth. They were likely to give birth prematurely when experiencing this type of psychological discomfort and had conditions that were exacerbated by dissatisfaction or perceived prejudice during the birthing process. Pregnant Black women who reported low levels of social support during the pandemic were more likely to report high levels of perceived stress, loneliness, and depressive symptoms. Perceived stress levels among pregnant Black women were amplified due to the racial tension caused by the murders of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. Another major source of stress for pregnant Black women was the overall economic strain of the pandemic, during which they were more likely to lose their jobs or have their income reduced. Lastly, pregnant Black women who use active coping techniques to regulate their emotions during the pandemic reported less perceived stress than those who used avoidance coping mechanisms. Methodology. Traditional positivist research only upholds measurable and quantifiable results, substantiates objective truths, utilizes generalizations, believes all human attributes except logic should be removed, insists that the researcher is unbiased and distanced, and assumes a non-intersectional context. For Black women scholars, this kind of research would require them to objectify themselves, devalue their emotions, and depreciate their motivations for adding to the body of knowledge about Black women, all of which inherently limits the inclusion of Black women in traditional research. Even after substantial mastery of white masculinist epidemiologies, many Black women scholars invoke their own concrete experiences and those of other Black women in selecting topics for investigation and methodologies used. Heuristic inquiry develops when a researcher has a firsthand experience with a subject of intense interest, and the topic of inquiry selects the researcher. The researcher is the primary instrument for data collection and is personally involved with the investigation. These studies are mainly exploratory, with little expectation of directly answering any particular hypotheses. So during my birth experience, I gave birth when I was 36 weeks and 3 days pregnant, and it was very unexpected. We didn't even have the crib set up. I woke up at 3 in the morning with a pounding headache, and I vomited, which was particularly upsetting and disturbing because that was the first time I had thrown up my whole pregnancy. My mother-in-law came over to our home with her blood pressure cuff, and my blood pressure reading was 186/110. So my husband and her really encouraged me to go to the emergency room. By the time I was wheeled into the emergency room, my blood pressure was 205/120. And I was told I was going to have my baby right then. I didn't know any of the doctors or nurses who were performing the surgery. I had never met them before. And it was a very scary moment. They kept saying that my eyes were rolling back in my head, which I don't recall because I was having symptoms that were beginning of stroking symptoms. I just remember trying to catch my husband's eye over my left shoulder and just wanting to make sure that he was okay. I was intubated and under anesthesia for surgery, so I was not awake when the baby was born, and my husband was not allowed in the room because they don't allow family members to watch the intubation process. So he was in the waiting room, not sure if either of us had made it. I went to sleep pregnant and I woke up a mother. My story is alarmingly similar to Shanice Wallace's story. We were at the same week in our pregnancies. We had the same diagnoses and we also had the same medical surgery. Her death could have been my death. The way I have remedied my survivor's guilt is by becoming my sis's keeper and by telling our stories. Personal experiences are very good evidence to the Black community and specifically to Black women, much more than distant statistics. For ordinary African-American women, those individuals who have lived through the experiences about which they claim to be experts are more believable and credible than those who have merely read or thought about such experiences. Thus, concrete experience as a criterion for credibility is frequently invoked by Black women when making knowledge claims. My participants, who are also my co-researchers, will be interviewed remotely due to health and safety concerns. Although President Biden declared the COVID-19 pandemic over in September of this year, experts say that a decline in cases and deaths in the United States does not equate to the end of a pandemic. And furthermore, a pandemic is a global phenomenon that cannot be declared over by any one country. This study will use purposive sampling or purposeful selection as is standard in heuristic inquiry. Moreover, certain measures will be used to increase the successful recruitment of Black participants, such as racial matching between the researcher and the co-researchers, empowering the participants with choice, such as the time and date of their interview, and accepting any co-researcher offers to help find more participants for the study. For Black research participants, this is a huge indicator of trust in both the research project and the researcher, and it is highly recommended that the researcher accept the offer to indicate mutual trust. For this reason, snowball sampling will also be used. The target population are individuals who self-identify as Black women, are age 18 or older, and gave birth in the United States between March 11, 2020, and that is when the WHO declared a global pandemic, and March 31, 2022, the period after each state individually ended their indoor mask mandates. Traditional quantitative researchers use the calculation for statistical power to measure how many participants are needed for their findings to be valid. However, the power of qualitative research is in the detailed descriptions of participants' life experiences, so a smaller sample size is acceptable. Therefore, this study seeks to include 5 to 10 women, one of whom will be the researcher. Collins simultaneously supports and warns against this departure from traditional research when she writes, Black women who choose to remain in academia must accept the possibility that their knowledge claims will be limited to those claims consistent with the white male worldview. Therefore, it is anticipated that some in the academy will discount this study's findings solely based on its sample size. For data collection, it will include interviews that are 60 to 90 minutes long and one-on-one between me and my co-researcher. These are voluntary, authentic encounters where I will honor the purpose of our interaction and value each of my co-researchers as a human being and not a piece of datum to be collected. For Black women, new knowledge claims are rarely worked out in isolation from other individuals and are usually developed through dialogues with other members of a community. Data collection will also include drawings, which are going to be taken pre-interview because heuristic inquiry embraces creative elaboration like poetry, artwork, and music. Each co-researcher will be asked to draw a depiction of their pregnancy experience. These drawings carry equal importance to the interview transcripts, build a rich multimodal body of empirical data, and are able to communicate the co-researcher's subconscious and intimate thoughts and emotions. It is critical to have the experience of drawing yourself before asking others to do so. Because of this, while writing this proposal, I drew a depiction of myself while pregnant. I also wrote a journal entry to caption the drawing, some of which I have included here. My pregnancy was a centrifuge. Everything around me was spinning so quickly, so fast, and at an unstoppable pace that I was distilled from my expectations, desires, hopes, and feelings. The only thing that centered me was my baby, and any anger that I felt would touch him in some generational, epigenetic, cyclical, hormonal, biological, neurobiological way. So I let him ground me while the world was spinning and trying to sweep me into the fog. We distilled together. My plan for analysis is 3-part. The first part will be presented through exploratory findings, specifically through thematic analysis or repeated patterns across the data set. The second part will be presented through descriptive findings, including individual depictions or brief profiles of each co-researcher, composite depictions or essential themes, excerpts, and artifacts that describe their collective experience, and exemplary portraits, or the detailed stories of a few co-researchers who best exemplify the whole group. The third part will be presented through interpretive findings, specifically through creative synthesis, where after incubating in the collected data, I will compose spoken word poetry that I will perform during my dissertation defense. This study is arguably rigorous because it will produce 3 types of qualitative findings. I will also use techniques to enhance the trustworthiness of my study. I will use member checking so each co-researcher can read their own interview transcripts for feedback and editing before I begin my analysis. Memoing, where I take analytic memos throughout the research process, talking to myself about the data. Reflexivity, where I will journal about the research process, but specifically my own personal values, beliefs, prejudices, and attitudes about the topic. And triangulation, where I will evaluate the data through multiple methods, such as observation, interviews, and artifacts. Implications. History teaches us that any new path forward should center those who are the most marginalized if we are to improve the health outcomes for all people with the capacity for pregnancy. To this end, the study will begin a conversation with communities of Black women about their pandemic and pregnancy experiences, give platform to the voices and experiences of Black women in medical and academic communities, and engage a historically marginalized group in equitable and fair research practices. These are my references. And I would like to thank, first of all, my husband, being he was the only classmate that I had for those 3 years when I was doing a lot of classes over Zoom, just the only person I had to talk to in person about what I was learning. And then to go through such an important and scary and joyous time of having our baby together. It was a unique experience, and I don't think I could have done it with anyone else. I also want to thank my committee, specifically Dr. Mitchell, who is the chair. I've been her research assistant for 2 years, and she has taught me more about qualitative research than I could have gathered from any of the references that I cited. Also, Dr. Allen, who I took my first qualitative class from and wrote my first qualitative proposal for, which really helped me develop the ideas for this topic. Dr. Tran, who guest spoke in Dr. Mitchell's class back when we were in person in 2020 and used photos to really explain the research visually and inspired me. And Dr. Booker, who I was on the hiring committee for. So I watched her teach her first lecture at UNT during her interview process, and it inspired me to get back into the classroom and to make sure the research is teachable. And if you were wondering why there are so many people on this Zoom session, it is because all of you guys were a huge part of my journey. You guys are my community and my loved ones and my friends and colleagues and peers, aunties, uncles, cousins, doctors, mentors, friends. And honestly, I don't know where I would be if I hadn't had each of you in my life. So thank you guys so much for listening and attending. And we can, if you're checking to see if you're here, you're in the picture. But we can now move on to comments, questions, and suggestions.
Thank you, Lauren, for an amazing presentation. So I will open it up now to questions from your committee. So Dr. Allen, Dr. Templeton, Dr. Booker, questions for Lauren?
I don't have a question yet, but I want to say I wasn't wondering how many people, why there are so many people. It's very clear that you are just like an amazing human being. You have your spirit comes through in this work. It's hard work and hard work, and it's so appreciated. And I can't imagine, like the process of reading all this and writing about it and then reflecting on it. And so, just want to commend already what you've done. I think it's going to be such a huge contribution to the medical field, human development, education. So I will just say that for now.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to piggyback on that and just say, well, Well, just wow, Lauren. I mean, I like in reading your proposal, I was sharing this with the committee before when we went to our breakout room, but just how poetic your writing is, how clear it is, the way that you're really like weaving together the history and the literature and like really making a compelling case and story and image for us about the ways that these things are connected. And I was telling Dr. Mitchell, just having had you in class a few years ago and to see the sort of like the seed of these ideas, right? And then to see it come to fruition in this way is just yeah, it was really powerful for me to read and see that growth. Um, One thing that was really standing out to me as I was listening to your presentation is this word connectedness. And I think it feels, well, I think it's a really powerful lens for analysis and thinking about this work, but then you see the connectedness embodied here in this community and in this moment of us, coming together around your work. I do have a few questions, but I'm gonna save that for now and pause and let Dr. Booker or Dr. Mitchell jump in.
Thank you.
I don't want to say replicate what everyone has said here. This is really they did such a great job in kind of capturing your proposal. I too was lost in kind of the storytelling process, right? So just the historical, it didn't feel like like a history lesson. It felt really like a lived, which I know it, as in your explanation and your kind of reflection of your own experiences, just seeing the connection through history, through this kind of shared moment, I think was just really just commendable. You did a really fantastic job there. So I was able to kind of really feel that throughout the documentation, your passion, your connectivity, beyond just your personal experiences, but almost allowing for this platform for a shared kind of elevation of voices and experiences for Black women. So thank you so much for a really wonderful job. You'll see in my paper, I'll send you some notes, you and Dr. Mitchell, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this was so wonderful, like great statement, so poetic, great. So you'll have a lot of that throughout my feedback. And I have some questions too. So I guess I will ask or maybe just statements, not really questions on some of these, but when you talked about Bronfenbrenner's framework around, using it as a lens as well, around the context within the theory. I would there's just within your proposal, you kind of talk about the context, right? So the nested systems, and then you kind of briefly talk about the PPTC or CT model. So the full model itself, so the person, process, context, and the time. I would introduce that first before you kind of shrink down and focus in on the context, just as a way of kind of acknowledging the mature aspect of that model, just kind of the many iterations of where it is and where we come to understand it now. And I think beyond this, so not connected to this research, I know you're looking at the context, which is really powerful, but I think you also have some other elements of the other parts of the model, like the person model is going to be really powerful in telling this story. So I think that would be something that you don't necessarily have to capture for this dissertation specifically, but maybe if you want to expand or kind of look at other ways to present your data, that might be an opportunity to look across all of those 4 different components of the full mature model. So that's just kind of one recommendation. I can come back to a couple of others. I'm open up. I'll let Carrie jump in.
Yeah, except I want to make sure, Dr. Mitchell, I have something to like build off of that, but I recognize, I want to make sure that you don't have something you want to jump in with first.
No, I'm taking diligent notes. Please continue.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think I had a question, kind of like a curiosity related to it, and to what Dr. Booker is talking about, and it connects back to recruitment a little bit too, Lauren, because I guess I was wondering if you, like, where you hoped to sample in terms of the US, right? Like, because I imagine, if you're drawing on Bronfenbrenner and we're thinking about context, like politics in Texas are a little different, perhaps, than politics in like California or New York, right? And I wondered, I wondered what you were thinking about in terms of that, of like, given that we want to elevate these stories, understand experiences, and how are we thinking about the role of context, and did it matter? Was it sort of helpful to think about variation perhaps across different states, or would it be helpful to like look at folks who are in a similar context?
Thank you, Dr. Booker and Dr. Allen, for both of your questions and statements. I'm going to back up a little bit and then hopefully find an answer to the question that you're looking for. But also for everyone watching, this is the ecological systems theory model. And what it does is it centers the individual, and then it has in the microsystem their immediate context or the things that they interact with on a daily basis. So this visual has family, peers, just the things that you as a person interact with. The mesosystem is the interaction of those systems between each other. So how your family interacts with your workplace, how your peers interact if you were to bring them to church. The exosystem is larger things in a societal context that you may not necessarily have a direct effect over. And specifically to the committee's questions, this is where I would be looking at, okay, what were the specific policies for this participant during the time of COVID? Because they varied not just state by state, but sometimes city to city, county to county. It really depended. And so it would be more like, okay, this participant is located in California and they couldn't go outside for 2 weeks, or they had a curfew. What did that look like in contrast to someone who went through the pandemic in Texas, where we basically had no restrictions? The microsystem also looks at the attitudes and ideologies of the culture. So this is where I would be looking at how the racial tension impacted each city's decisions. For example, how did some cities in 2020 handle restrictions when there were protests happening? And then the chrono system, which is the ring around that, really looks at time. So looking at the specific era of COVID-19, looking at March 2020 to March 2022, and what that specific time period all looked like and all impacted for the individual. Now, for the recruitment process, I plan to recruit participants through social media posts on my personal platform in order to get a wide range throughout the United States, but only within the United States. So posting something to the effect of, if you are a Black woman who gave birth in the United States between March 2020 and March 2022, I'm interested in understanding your experiences. At the moment, I don't have funding, so there would be no incentives, but I would tell the participants, and I have experienced this anecdotally, that there are things that you might have experienced that you didn't have voice to or put words to until you're actually sitting down and talking about it. So it would be a chance to tell their story.
Well, I imagine, Lauren, that after you have a sense of who sort of takes up that offer, right, to tell the story, maybe when you have a sense of who all those women are, then to kind of make decisions there about what you have the capacity to do, as you know, and just like maybe it ends up being mostly women in Texas, and then there you go, right? Or it's Texas and California, and then there's some really interesting things that you could learn about the differences of those experiences or something. So maybe that's something that we, you know, as a committee can kind of help you think through as you're at that stage.
Absolutely. And I would really appreciate that. I started an online peer support group for women who gave birth during the pandemic at the beginning of this year. And from that, because I didn't know anyone who was also pregnant during the time I was pregnant, but from that experience, I have friends now in Canada, in Australia, New York, California, Florida, all over the place. So I do anticipate that it will be a wide geographic range. So getting help in narrowing down which participants to include would be very helpful.
Yeah.
So I have two big questions and then just two comments. I'll send you a document too that I put comments in. I think I really enjoyed reading about your positionality. You know, you talked about the various aspects of your identity that inform your perspective of the world. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to how your positionality informs how you would look at the data and how you would interact with participants. So a little bit more directly related to the methodologies.
Sure. So again, for you guys who aren't in academia, a positionality or a statement of positionality is me sitting down and writing my experiences, my biases, where I've been in life, the things that have made me me, that could color the way that I view participants in the research. But the idea is that by writing them down and accounting for them consistently throughout the process, I would lessen having any rose-colored lenses, so to speak. So some of the things I wrote down was that I'm married. So being a married pregnant woman is a very different experience from being unmarried. That even though I have a very strong Black identity, I have light skin. So sometimes people mistake me for being ethnically ambiguous or multiracial. And that can also impact the way that I'm treated, particularly when I'm pregnant. I wrote down that I was raised Seventh-day Adventist. So even now, you know, this was the first Halloween that my husband and I, either of us, had celebrated this year, and we had to have discussions about what that would look like because it's so far from where we grew up. So in looking at how my positionality impacts the way that I'm going to use the methodologies that I have stated and the frameworks, I think that knowing my own intersectional identities is helpful in that I can see participants more clearly. I read somewhere that it's much easier to understand your points of oppression than it is to understand your points of privilege. So understanding that I did grow up upper middle class, or that I am highly educated, that both of my parents had terminal degrees, things that I don't take for granted, but could potentially impact the way that I view participants if I'm not constantly thinking about it. Or that because I do come from a very medical background, even now, I have lots of friends who are still not taking COVID-19 vaccines, and understanding that whether or not somebody takes them has no reference here nor there about who they are as an individual, and really unpacking my experience of the pandemic, being from such a religious background and constantly thinking before I got to UNT that the world was one way, and then getting exposed to so much more, because UNT is actually the first public university that I've attended. Every other school I've been to up until my master's degree has been Seventh-day Adventist. So it was a very limited exposure to other people from other backgrounds. But my hope is that by constantly reflecting on the things that don't oppress me, but provide privileges for me, I will be able to better understand my participants.
Thanks, Lauren.
I had a question about, can you just elaborate a little bit more on your Zoom transcription process? Just because I know that ODA, like just here, are, you know, a couple departments on campus require us or steer us away from that, but I think that it's workable and doable. So I just wanted to kind of maybe ask and just have you elaborate on that process and what that Zoom transcription will look like if you plan to record as well. So I'll let you share that.
Sure. So while interviewing the participants over Zoom, I do plan to record the meetings. And I haven't decided if I'm going to even ask for the transcript, but the idea is that I'm going to transcribe them by ear after having incubated in them and listened to them maybe 4, 5, 6 times, and then typing it out, because I want to be immersed in each participant's experience. And that's part of the reason it was so important for me to go deep into my positionality and into my drawing and really understand where I stood in relation to this topic, because once another story is presented in front of me, I just want to understand that. And I don't want my own experience to cloud the analysis of that topic. But I will also be member checking, so sending the transcripts to the participants to make sure that everything that they said is accurate and that they stand by. And if they want to redact anything, I would also do that at that time.
Thank you, Lauren.
Lauren, I had a couple of questions related to your research questions. I think yeah, that would be wonderful if you pull them up. Thank you. I'll just, like, as a side note too, I just want to point out that, like, how Lauren is taking this opportunity to, like, teach, like, you're, like, teaching. I love that, like, yeah, yeah. So awesome. Anyway, so I think I had some questions about, well, there was 2. So with the first one about I was curious about why the experience just of the pandemic. And because when I do look at, like, your data collection and your analysis, it's really not just about experiences of the pandemic. It's more about these women's experiences of the pandemic as it's relating to their experiences of, you know, pregnancy and engaged with the healthcare system, and you know, or you know, starting to think about, you know, shifts in the family system, and so I wasn't sure. In some ways, like, the question felt really broad to me, and I didn't know if it landed that way with other committee members, and so I wasn't sure what that question was going to do for you analytically. And, like, in my notes, I wrote something like, their experience of the pandemic, you know, while being pregnant, or, you know, and being pregnant or something. So I don't know that it's more maybe a comment at this point, or like a suggestion for like think about that question and what it is, if it is specific enough to sort of speak to what you're, you know, exploring here. And then I think the other.
All right, Dr. Allen, was that the first question that you were referring to?
Yeah.
Can I touch on that?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So part of my thought process in this is the first questions that I ask in my semi-structured interviewed guide is, what does it mean? What does Blackness mean to you? And then I ask, what does it mean to be a woman? And then what does it mean to be a Black woman? And I ask those questions in that order specifically because I think all 3 of them will yield very different answers. Because it's one thing to be a woman and it's one thing to be Black, but to live at the intersection of both of those things has a unique impact on an experience. And so when I'm thinking about this question, how did the participants' intersectional identities as Black women impact their experience of the pandemic? I was looking at them away from their pregnancy, but still situating them, like you said, inside of the pandemic, where I think about my own experience learning about the murder of Breonna Taylor. And it's like, she was just sleeping in her bedroom. How does that impact the thought process of how am I going to be at home, let alone bring a baby into this world, let alone plan a family? I think there are also specific experiences of whether or not to go to a protest, because there's danger, there's police, there could be violence potentially. What does that look like as a Black woman, as opposed to going to a protest during the pandemic as a Black man or someone who isn't Black? I think that there might be enough unique experiences for this question to yield answers. But again, that's the beauty of qualitative work. I don't need to identify immediately what my participants are going to say. It may end up that I throw out this question entirely, or that they say other things like what you're saying, that their lifetime of experience as Black women is what really had the impact on the pandemic and not the reversal of it. So I'm interested in finding out. I may need to reword this question, but we'll see. And that's what we
Yeah, and I think, well, and I think the key, what I'm hearing from you is sort of understanding participants' intersectional identities as Black women. And that I think maybe the word pandemic is what was throwing me off there. And I think what I'm hearing you say is more of like during that time period, really. And right, because it's more about, it's not just the pandemic, but it's like all the things that were happening during that time. But yeah, I know it's helpful to hear you talk through that. And then, okay, and then I have one final question about the interviews. So I know, okay, so I know limited capacity. I know you don't have funding. I have actually an idea about that we should talk about, I think, after this time. But one thought I had was like, maybe just doing the one interview is all you have the capacity for. But I was thinking about the approach of having a couple of interviews, one where it's a little bit more of a getting to know you, and then the second one is more of a responding to the drawing and kind of digging deeper into the story. And so in splitting it up in a way that that really fosters the relationship building, fosters that kind of closeness and trust, and then you're having a sense of who this person is and this dynamic as you're moving into that, like a second conversation where then you're kind of thinking together and reacting to these images. And so I don't know that it's like a suggestion necessarily, but just something to consider as a way into the data collection. And so, you've sort of suggested the 60 to 90 minutes. Well, maybe it ends up being, like an initial 30-minute conversation. And then there's, a longer conversation in the second interview, something like that.
I would second that. I think that that's probably necessary, especially if you're bringing in drawing, because drawing is actually you're a beautiful artist, but not everybody feels comfortable with drawing. And to show somebody you've just met a drawing is actually really anxiety provoking. I know that I feel that way. So you might, I would really second what Dr. Allen just said, to develop that. And also it's fitting with the Black feminist thought. It's fitting with the notion of you're being a sister's keeper. So just, I would highly recommend that too.
Thank you. Thank you both for this suggestion. I will definitely look into that. My original thought process was that, and I explain more, of course, in the dissertation, but there is an initial phone call prior to the interview where I verbally explain to participants what the drawing is. And that would go something more like, you don't have to be an artist. I'm just interested in seeing a visual of what you experienced. It can be figures, it can be shapes, it can be just colors. It just has to be an expression of what you felt during your pregnancy. And that is a part of a script that I got from one of the articles that I read on pre-qualitative interview drawings. So that would, in my mind, be the initial point of contact. And then the interview would be the second point. Now, in terms of building rapport, I do have experience interviewing other Black women through my research with Dr. Mitchell. We do the Black Mom study where we talk about the school to prison pipeline and Black moms' experiences with their kids being in schools. And what I have noticed is that typically it does take a couple minutes for an initial connection to form, whether it's through anything that you would find common ground with someone. But once we get into a rhythm, we usually get into it very quickly. And there is a quote by Patricia Hill Collins I would like to refer to. It's something about the way that knowledge is formed through connectedness, but there's also a quote, and I'm not putting my hand on it right now, but there's also a quote about the sisterhood and, oh yes, I remember where it was. There's also a quote about the sisterhood and intimate connection that is almost immediate for many Black women when they are speaking. And I would go even further to say that because being pregnant during the pandemic is such a unique experience, I almost immediately find sisterhood with any woman who gave birth during that time period, whether I'm at an airport or in a grocery store, because they're so, wearing a facial mask while you're pregnant and breathing for two is exhausting. I would often have to leave my cart and go outside of a grocery store in order to breathe. Having to decide if I should take a vaccine for two people is tremendously emotionally and mentally taxing, let alone having virtual baby showers, having virtual gender reveals. Some of my friends that I have made because we were pregnant during the same time period weren't allowed to have their spouses, their husbands in their delivery room because the spouse took the wrong COVID test. They took a rapid test and they were supposed to take a PCP panel. Or having to go to doctor's appointments by yourself. My husband wasn't allowed to even be in our waiting room because the capacity was so limited, unless for 3 different appointments he was allowed to come in because it was a planned ultrasound. Other than that, he had to wait in the car. And those are very specific experiences that people who are pregnant prior to COVID didn't necessarily have. And people who are giving birth now don't necessarily have either. And so because of the Black sisterhood and because of the specific experience, I am confident that we will be able to form a very quick, deep connection based on our discussion topics.
Thank you for that. That was interesting. I'm glad I couldn't have articulated that, but I thought that that was really kind of a great kind of capture, right? Something that I didn't have an experience with. I mean, that very specific example you gave. So I really appreciate you kind of taking time to make those connections around how you're thinking about it and that connectivity piece. So thank you. I had a question, you probably already thought of this, but I'm just looking back to see some of the demographic information that you plan to collect from your co-researchers. Will relate, of course, to their experiences, but I was wondering if you've thought of questions that kind of will help to connect that, you know, the microsystems, the meso, kind of live in that mesosystem area. So maybe at what point did they enter or seek out or start seeking care prenatally for, right? Because that's also something that I think might be relevant, as well as, because you mentioned it, I think in your literature review, that oftentimes Black women will seek out other Black doctors, right, for this aspect of connectivity, just to kind of borrow or extend that word a little bit more. So have you thought about, or you probably have some questions that you can probably think of right now that to add, but I think it might be viable in helping not only to, again, connect those two systems or kind of speak within that mesospace, but also connect back to the prior research, right? Just some elements that kind of have that kind of connectivity across the literature and your findings that you're going to come across.
I think that's a very good point, and I haven't added any of those types of questions yet to my demographic form. Right now it's very standard, so occupation, income per year, but I think you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, having participants know when they first sought medical care, because that would look different for different people. Maybe perhaps what week they found out they were pregnant would also be helpful, because I do know that some people don't go to the hospital and prefer to only have midwives. Some people want doulas, so asking more particular questions about that would help find patterns. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, we can take about 4 minutes for questions from the audience, if there are any, or brief comments. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. This is Daphne Harris, and I just wanted to say job well done, Lauren. But I also just had a question in regards to the demographics as well. Can you tell me one more time your age range that you had?
So the age is, as long as they're over 18 years old, that's the only age stipulation, and they gave birth within the United States, and that they self-identify as Black women.
Okay, so my question about that is, looking at age, we also know when it comes to Black women and giving birth, we already have the different complications that just come with that alone. But when you intersect age with that, then now you are speaking to a possibility that experience really shifts and change because of being a high-risk pregnancy, also due to age and some of the things that come with the age difference. How are you planning to, I guess, incorporate that aspect into your research here? Because I think that will have a big impact on the experiences that you may find when you add that variable of age.
I absolutely agree. Ideally, I would like, after my dissertation is complete, to do more rounds of this study, looking at maybe different demographics specifically. For right now, I do believe that the people that will be most likely to participate in the study will probably be between 24 and 30 years old, just because that is the majority age range of the followers that I have on social media platforms where I will be posting this information. If someone does come to the study and they are older and they had a pregnancy during COVID-19, I would love to hear their experiences. Fortunately, in qualitative work, it doesn't necessarily matter how many participants say the same thing or agree on a certain topic. As long as it is a pertinent and salient theme for that participant, I can include it in the coding. And so I would probably use that participant or co-researcher as an exemplar portrait, where I go more into the depths of their stories and what made it unique and set them apart from the other participants.
Thank you.
Hey, Lauren.
Hey.
There we go. I was trying to turn my video on, but I think you did an excellent job at defining the terms. I think it's an awesome study. I'm so excited to see what you find. I think you're going to have a lot of people to sign up for this study. Like, look at all of the people that just joined the proposal. And so I think it'll be good for you to consider how you want to like further target like the people that you want to write about. Some people have already said it, like it could be by demographics, it could be whatever you choose, but with you being at the dissertation phase, I think that like one person mentioned that one interview would be enough, right? And it would be amazing. But I just would encourage you to think about how you're going to choose the participants that are going to sign up, because I believe you're going to have so many sign up. And so like you could even consider like if there's two people that's kind of like a very similar story, maybe you choose one of those people, right? And then, you know, maybe have about 4 different types of situations represented, as opposed to like duplicating sort of the same story over and over for the sake of your dissertation, and being able to finish in a relatively you know, just to finish, I don't want to say quick, but you can write this dissertation forever. And so I just encourage you to sort of think about that, if that makes sense.
I appreciate that comment a lot. And Dr. Mitchell and you are definitely on the same page, because when I first brought this topic to her, I told her that I wanted to have 20 to 30 participants. And she said, girl, please. So we have narrowed it down to 5 to 10 participants. And I think you are right. I think that people will feel impressed to talk about their experiences. So we will have to sit down and maybe with some of my committee members, figure out some criteria for, you know, maybe type of birthing process, or maybe the state that they're located in, and make sure that we have a wide range of examples that represent a lot of different participant experiences. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I could say, Lauren, I'm glad that I'm still part of your journey. I see you becoming the scholar that I always saw you, always remembering that you were the first person to do a senior thesis for our English department as a capstone, and I can see why as I look at what you're doing. I placed a lot of comments in the chat that I know you'll hopefully will take advantage of, but I'm looking forward to the production of what you're pursuing. And of course, it's going to take you many places, so kudos.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Prigg. And this is Dr. Prigg. He was my chair of my department in undergrad for English and my advisor then, and he still advises me now. And he had asked me a question about my proposal about 2 days ago for me to chew on. He asked me if I had to put my thesis into one sentence, what would it be? Yes, I know. And he is a descriptive grammar guru. So I want to say first and foremost, it is a compound sentence. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of words. But I would say that Black women who gave birth during COVID-19 are twice exceptional, because they belong to a historically unique group of people and lived during the unprecedented time of the COVID-19 pandemic, comma, and traditional research, epistemologies, ontologies, and methodologies cannot consummately study their experiences.
Okay,
Thank
good
you
morning.
everyone for your comments and your questions. The committee and I are going to move into a breakout room to continue our discussion. You all are welcome to stay and discuss and ask Lauren questions if she's open to answering them. And we'll return soon with our decision regarding Lauren moving.
Thank you.